Good evening and welcome to the Lewis Masterclass of today. It is a great pleasure to have two distinguished guests today with us. We're going to be discussing about the role of open innovation to recover from the crisis. So let me briefly introduce who are the speakers for today. We have Henry Chesbrough, who is a professor at Lewis University, but also is the director of the Garwood Center at Berkeley University. And at Lewis, he holds the Maire Tecnimont Chair in Open Innovation. And then we have Fabrizio Di Amato, who is the president and founder of Maire Tecnimont, who's going to be counteract with Henry about open innovation. Let me give you just a couple of elements about our masterclasses. As we know, Lewis is extremely active in offering, producing, sharing knowledge which is actionable. That is to say, we do produce knowledge, of course, using academic rigor, but at the same time, we do think that our expertise has to be somehow diffused and shared with the wider public via interaction like the one that we are going to have today. In the previous masterclasses, we had other experts discussing about new normality, discussed about the role of networks for the pandemic and after the pandemic. The last one has seen Jeffrey Schnapp and Gianni Lostotto talking about the role of artificial intelligence and the extent to which we human beings can harness the digital technology for a better future. So today, our dimension is going to be innovation and particularly open innovation. So I'm pleased now to leave the floor to Cristina Alaimo, who's going to be chairing the session, who is an assistant professor here at Lewis University, and she is very focused on digital transformation. Please, Cristina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you very much. I am delighted to be part of this Lewis Masterclass, an initiative, and very pleased to share the floor with two distinguished guests, such as Henry Chesbrough and Fabrizio Di Amato. Before leaving the floor to Henry Chesbrough, I would like just to remind the format of today. So we will have two talks, one from Henry, the other from Fabrizio. Henry will talk for around 15 minutes. Then we will have Fabrizio Di Amato talking for around 10 minutes. And then we will open the debate, the Q&A. So I will just would like to remind all the people watching us through social media channel to write their question and comment. It will be then my pleasure to gather them and to open up the Q&A with our guests. So thank you very much, Henry. I leave the floor to you.
Cristina, thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be a part of the program with you today. I want to discuss the role that open innovation can play in the coming recession that, although statistically we may not be there yet, we clearly are in every other way are already in it. But there is hope, as I will discuss. The key idea here is that in a recession, innovation suffers and costs must be cut. But that's not all. How we cut our costs matters greatly to our ability to grow back later. So this is the key idea that I want to share with you today, how we manage in the recession so that we recover. And open innovation can be helpful in doing this. So I could have done a list of recessions in Italy. This was convenient for me to show you recessions in the US. Technically, a recession is defined as 2 or more consecutive quarters where the gross domestic product of a country declines. So in the first quarter of this year, it was just reported yesterday that the US suffered a 4.8% decline. So that's only one quarter. Technically, we need a second quarter before we are officially in a recession. The other thing to realize, though, about recessions is although they are painful, they do not endure for years and years. Rather, the duration is, 1 to 2 years. And so as we think about the pain and the cost reduction we must do now, we must also be thinking about when markets return. So we have to position ourselves to weather the downturn and be ready for the recovery. And this is what we do not want to do. For those of you who are gardeners, you would know the idea of topping a plant, in this case, a tree. And topping the plant permanently stunts the ability of that plant to grow again. And so the analogy inside organizations is if we simply cut all of our projects by a fixed amount of money, that would be equivalent to topping the tree. A better way to approach it would be to think of pruning the plant. So we do cut back certain branches of the tree, perhaps entirely, but we leave the other branches intact so that the tree is actually able to renew and grow again. This builds on an idea of open innovation. And open innovation can be thought of as purposive knowledge flows across organizational boundaries, both from the outside in and to the inside out. And it's the inside out part of open innovation that informs this concept of how we make cuts today and recover for tomorrow. So in the case of Company A and Company B, these dotted lines represent their innovation processes. And each of those circles can be thought of as an innovation project. In a recession, we do not have the resources to carry all of these projects through to the marketplace. But as this diagram shows, open innovation gives us other options in these situations. And I'm going to quickly sketch 5 actions that you can use that build on this open innovation model that help you manage and continue to have the potential to grow again. The first one is if you do not have the resources to carry a project through to its completion because of the recession, you can cancel the project entirely. But open innovation gives us another alternative. Instead of canceling the project outright, you could turn yourself into a customer or a supplier of your former internal project. A quick example here would be Eli Lilly in the pharmaceutical industry, where they chose in the digital e-business category to create an entity externally to carry things forward and become a customer of the project instead. And that project became a company known as Innocentive, which continues to operate to this day. And Lilly continues to be a customer of Innocentive. A second example would be to take initiatives that you just cannot continue, particularly if they seem in this environment to be less strategic, and spin them off. And Philips in the Netherlands has done this a number of times with its semiconductor industry, more recently with its lighting business. And this allows the activity to continue without requiring Philips to continue to invest money in the project. A third example would be to make your intellectual property assets work harder. So Siemens, for example, has more than 80,000 patents, but fewer than 10% of those patents are actually used in Siemens businesses. That leaves 90% of those assets to be used in other ways. A fourth option is grow your own ecosystem even as you narrow your own internal activities. And Philips is another example of this with their high-tech campus in Eindhoven in the Netherlands. This previously was an internal R&D facility, but today it's been opened up to more than 75 other companies. And so the physical infrastructure is now maintained independently of Philips, and the ecosystem is thriving there. And Philips only has a small portion of the costs now in that high-tech campus. And the last idea is to take ideas and projects and put them into open domains so that although you will not directly profit from that, you can keep the ideas in the open, you can reduce your costs, attract others to the endeavor, and prevent your competitors from patenting in these areas by putting it into the open. And an example here would be a different pharmaceutical company, Merck, that created a publication called the Merck Gene Index to put into the open many of the markers in the human genome that Merck is hoping to use to build new therapies for. So these are 5 moves you can make. But a final thought is to think about our people. And in a recession, unfortunately, we are not always able to keep employing all of our people. So how do we deal with the people knowing that when the recession is over, we may need many of them to come back? Well, we have to think about certain factors, how long we can survive, whose work is essential at this moment, whose work is really more optional, and whom will I need when the recovery does come? And this means we have different ways of managing people, from layoffs, where the people really aren't expected to come back anytime soon, to furloughs and work share arrangements, where the connection is maintained and it's easier for the people to come back more quickly. Another model would be to adopt a shared sacrifice approach where everybody's cash compensation goes down, but you perhaps balance that with bonuses or equity if and when things return. So what do we do on Monday morning? One thing to do with the recession coming is to prioritize the initiatives that we have in our company. We cannot do them all, and in the recession, we should not even try to do them all. Some should be continued, some should be stopped. But there is a third option. Some of these might continue in a more open fashion, where we share the risks and rewards, we share the costs, or depending on how we do it, we offload the costs to others. So go through all of your projects and start proactively to discuss with top management how you can manage and be able to grow again while managing your expenses now. And don't forget to take care of your people. Hopefully, you will need them soon. Just yesterday, in the city of Genoa, they formally celebrated the reconstruction of the bridge that famously collapsed just 2 years ago. And the bridge is now open to pedestrian traffic, and in July will be open to cars and trucks as well. This is costing the city of Genoa 6 million euros a day. And so having this bridge put back together in record time is an example of how quickly Italy can recover from the crisis when there is focus and commitment and innovation. And so my final slide is to say to us that yes, winter is coming, but remember it is followed by the spring. I look forward to the discussion and debate.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Henry, for this thought-provoking presentation. You have nicely highlighted the main point of open innovation, which I repeat right now, also to give the audience the opportunity to leave their question and comment. I remind them in our social media channel and also through WhatsApp. So open innovation, a purposive knowledge flow across organizational boundaries. You have highlighted 5 points. that manager can do to turn also toward open innovation. Turn yourself into a customer. A spin-off non-strategic initiative. Make your IP working harder. Grow ecosystem. And on this, perhaps, Harry, I will come back because I have some questions. Take ideas, the fifth point, and projects and put them into open domains. So you have highlighted also the role of people and the importance of people in these processes, particularly managing innovation during recession time. So you have nicely then finished it up with some thoughts about Monday morning, which I would like to propose, which are rather than cut, open up. And you left with this nice image of spring. After winter, spring will come. So let's prepare to this with some nice advice and initiative. I would like now to ask. I would like now to ask Fabrizio Di Amato to share its own industry perspective to open innovation, and the broader themes of innovation during recession. Fabrizio Di Amato, please.
Thank you, Cristina. First of all, I would like to thank you, Andrea, Rector Lewis, and Henry Chesbrough for inviting me on this important event of the MasterClass of Lewis. I would like to give you a few words about Maire Tecnimont, and then I would like to give you 3 points of our ideas of this crisis. What we did before, what we are doing now, and what we think for the future. What is the planning for the future? Few words on Maire Tecnimont. Maire Tecnimont is listed in Milano Stock Exchange as an engineering and process technology company. We are doing all over the world. We are more than 55 company in 45 countries. We are 50 operation in all over the world. We are doing in petrochemical business, oil and gas industries, hydrogen, and recently we set up a new challenge to the next as a new industries of the chemical, green chemistry, and also circular economy. Just the magnitude of our business, the revenues full year result last year is around 3.5 billion euros of revenues, more than 220,000 million euros of EBITDA, and then more than 120 million on profit. And 10,000 people is in our organization. Just to give you an example of what we are. Now we move of the question of these meetings. What we are doing, what we did before the COVID emergency. Maire Tecnimont 5 years ago decided to move in organization of the important process and rethinking a working model of our organization with the digital tools and especially applying smart working. But for us, just a few words to explain what we think about smart working. For us, smart work is not about open the phone, you are at home, and then you are connected with things, that's it. No, for sure this is an instrument, but the real redesign of the industrial process and using digital technology. This is the things we use the platform as an instrumental, but you need to rethink and reorganize the group. The reorganization, the workflow. space, cultural, adopt the new processing and more challenging in all the other sector. We are now, somebody say, you are the 5 years ago, you are the fanatics, you are the techno fan because you would like to move in advance because somebody say no, you don't need in that way. But we engage and applying the innovation. Thanks to that, with interaction with a different sector, we are now change into the growth. Just the second point, what we are doing now during this emergency. Even if we couldn't imagine this crisis, we were already prepared. But our digital advance platform, we could guarantee business continuity. This is the important things what we have. Just a few words about that. In one day, we move 3,000 employees from office at home, and the performance are guaranteed. Also, the week later, another 3,000 people, also in India, we move in smart working with approach I described before. And then the second thing is to connect by the pilot projects, become our secret waypoint to mitigate impossibility to travel. Because the tested, basically our new ideas is to virtualization and remotization of all the activity and to be performance on the field. This is the real things we have in mind on that. Repeat, for us, the smart working is not only the instrumental teams or whatever. For sure you need that, but you need to populate of the virtual and remotization on that. We tested, we covered this situation, overcome and change also the resistance of the management, because sometimes you need, there is a critical people as a position in organization, as a senior key manager, as they don't want to change. But thanks to this crisis now, all our organization, our people move and change their mentality. Thanks the innovation, and then thanks to this approach, also we started with university with the chair of Open Innovation, Maire Tecnimont, thanks to Henry, and the rector and the Louis. Therefore, a lot of it will survive, I hope, will survive after the crisis. This is the important thing, what we think. Repeat what I said before, now 5,000 people work all over in engineering and continuing to perform in our organization at home, coordinating and connected with all the projects we have all over the world. This is the key, very key elements. And also, for example, with this morning we announced as a press release, also we organized the workshop in streaming with all our plants all over the world to see the safety and the HSE in all the site operator, because the other ideas is to share with the people who are on site the measure of prevention and everything. Also, thanks this organization, and then we will implement the next stage of these emergencies. Now, we just a few words about, finally, future. In my personal idea, we are in the crucial point, crucial time, because for one end, we have, for example, in our industry, few months ago in the Eurozone announced an important program of investments of the new Green Deal, 1,000 billion of euros available for the next 20 years for the new investments as infrastructure. What Henry mentioned before, in the bridge of Genoa, you can see if you remove the barrier of the bureaucracy, you can do in very short time, in 2 years, an important infrastructure like that to resolve the issue of the country, to accelerate of the investment and the economy. But what I would like to say is we are in two things. We are one hand, cash available coming, because Eurozone remove the barrier of the deficit or something like that. We are more cash available for use for the investments. We need for the economy to restart very faster to recovery the economy. But the real problem we have in this time is the bureaucracy. And then if we use the same approach as open innovation, as a people, and also during this crisis, also the people, senior people are the key people, are in some position. Now they need to rethink about the future, what they need to do. And then I think this ingredient, thanks to these ingredients, we have a very important chance. And the innovation, what Henry said during his presentation, if we move on this way, we support, we are open-minded to receive all the feedback coming from all the different parts as an innovation, you can pass through a concrete approach. Thanks to this ingredient, we can start for the future. Our group, as in our approach, we decide, repeat, to all the things we put in place, we want to maintain for the future. We discuss many times with the CEO of the group to reorganize the group, but the important thing is the brain, the open mind to see what you can do for the future. And the example, repeat, as the bridge of Genoa is the important example you need to do for the future. And then I hope if we can use this time to realize the things impossible in the normal times. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fabrizio Di Amato. You really raised some important issue, not just related to, of course, open innovation, but the managing of organization during particular time, which are not just time of crisis, but as you mentioned, times of transition. Because one of the important points that you have touched upon is certainly the use of digital technologies and digital innovation, and how cannot be limited to a sort of instrumental use, but if we really tap into the innovative potential of digital technology, then we need to restructure some processes, some way of doing things, some thinking and culture. So perhaps I would like to use this point to provoke Henry and ask him in a more general way, how does it see the role of digital technology, or what role digital technology can play to foster open innovation, and what are the limits even of digital technology to open innovation? How do you see this relationship, drawing from from the point from the critical issue that Fabrizio raised?
To me, innovation is an area of study that naturally moves between theory and practice, and then back to theory again, and then back to practice. And what Fabrizio is sharing with us this morning reminds me how important this is, particularly in the area of digital, where he was already doing pilot projects and initiatives in the digital area for his business. But because he did this, when the unexpected pandemic came, he already had processes and capabilities available that allowed him to react quickly and effectively, and not only achieve business continuity, but I think many of these things will indeed live on in the recovery as well. So the recovery is not going to be going back to where we were before. We will rather be moving into a new area with new processes, and in the case of Maire Tecnimont, new capabilities that were created as pilot projects, but now are becoming core business processes. This idea of virtualization and creating digital twins of key facilities, key technologies, allows you to do things like much more rapid experimentation in silicon before you do the experimentation live. But having the digital models have to be high quality and high fidelity to get the value from them. So it takes a lot of time and work to achieve this, because they did this work, they are now able to do new things. And then traditional legacy processes and assets, whether it's office space and real estate, whether it's the long commutes that some of us have to our jobs, in this newly digitally enabled environment, I think we're going to see a new balance of these factors.
Thank you very much, Andy. I love the idea and the fact that you relaunched immediately to experimentation, which is one of the most important aspects of open innovation as well. So, and you connected digital technology and also the work of Maire Tecnimont on experimentation, fast experimentation, and the use of digital technology to sort of move some of these processes into virtual setting. And you mentioned also digital twin, which is a very interesting aspect of it. Perhaps I would now ask Fabrizio if he can share with us some of the best practices of open innovation he has seen taking place during this crisis of before then, he worked upon in order to sort of continue working towards experimentation and innovation, even during the crisis.
Thanks, Cristina. But what I say, repeat, during this crisis, for us, it was, we develop what we started 5 years ago in the real time, because with all organization with us, because in the beginning, for sure, we are doing all that in the same way, but not only the whole organization are with us, because sometimes you need to push to explain them. That's why you need to change the mentality. For example, as a virtualization, as a commissioning of the projects. For example, now we cannot travel. We have a very big problem sometimes, because we have a specialist based, for example, in Italy, but our projects, we are in Russia, Philippines, Malaysia, US, and thanks this virtualization approach, now we use a remotization also with both. Now we have our people, our specialists, at home, in this time at home, or in our office, and in Italy, and is connect directly with the people on site, and we can commissioning all the project and all the detail coming straight forward, and very easy for us in this time to see immediately the result, because in the beginning it was the pilot plant, somebody, not all the plant, but now we are necessary to do on it, for example, and then we see a very good result on that. For the another things is the design, what I said before, for design and industrialization of the digital technology, for example, is the same. With the same approach, we are also increase more and more our organization, because also, repeat what I said before, some people are resistant, not resilient, but in this time, the situation is completely different. And then we are more and more increase our real innovation, real changing and the mentality, and use more and more our platform we applied in the last 5 years.
Thank you very much, Fabrizio. There are questions keep on coming from social media channels. So at this point, I would like to read a couple of these questions to both our speakers. For instance, Marco asks, how can people really work together effectively in smart working? Which kind of platform working organization, Dr. Di Amato, you put in place? Can you make some examples?
For example, as a platform, like we use now, no? We have in this approach, for example, we have a Microsoft Teams organization. We decided 2 years ago to apply this platform, but I see with our IT departments, they use in the last 2 years more than 20% in our organization, maybe 30%. Now we are 100% connected with this platform. But what I said before, is not only the open phone, no use, you are at home and use the phone and that's it, you resolve the smart working. No, because this is the instrument and this is the platform you have, and thanks to that, you can apply, you can introduce the virtualization, digitalization, remotization, and then we are more and more in this time connected than before.
Thank you. I would like to go back to one of the points, Fabrizio Di Amato, you made in your speech, and you mentioned barriers. You mentioned bureaucracy. You mentioned the resistance of manager or employees. So I would like to turn to Harry now and ask him what are the barriers to open innovation in his experience, and if this barrier can shift from sector to sector or from industry to industry, and what to do to solve some of them.
The barrier are barrier.
A barrier are barrier cannot be.
Are barrier for the
there's nothing to be done.
All the industry are barrier. For sure, in our experience, the infrastructure has an impact more and more, because you are environmental impact, you are government impact, you are financial impact, because as an important investments, you are design impact, and then repeat what I say. If just I would like to give you an example. 60 years ago, 70 years ago, the highway Autostrada del Sole in Italy was built in around 18 years. 70 years later, now we need to, with the new technology, with the new organization, we need to apply the same infrastructure 2 years, 2 years and a half. We did a piece of this highway in the north, close to Bologna, Variante di Valico. We did this job in 30 years. This is the things. And then now we are the Ponte di Genova, bridge of Genova, in less than 2 years. That is the barriers is coming. This is the mentality of the people, because some people as the problem is as a key position of the organization, and they don't want to change their mentality because they don't have an open mind. We need to open the door, open the window, fresh air, moving the air. You need to come with also with the young people. The approach, the company like us, we are open, always, where there is ideas, new startup, new entrepreneur, they want to come to us and talk. We are open, always open to understand what they want, what we can do as a corporate international group like us, we can do together, because they don't want to buy or remove everything. No, for us, we are full respect. If this approach can be changed, their mentality. And then I think, it's my personal opinion, we have an important chance. If you see the positive part of this crisis, we have the chance, very important chance, to change this mentality. And then you can remove this barrier, and the innovation is the key elements for everybody to work on this, because if they change their mentality on that, because now they are constrained to change, to use, for example, the platform, or to use the digitalization, or to use the virtualization, because they cannot travel, they cannot come. And then if they remove, and if these things survive after the crisis, maybe we can have a very good chance to change and remove the barrier for the future.
So, Cristina, if I may, I would only add a couple of points to what Fabrizio just said. One barrier to open innovation in normal times is this attitude of we must control everything ourselves, and from end to end. One of the things about the crisis that I'm seeing is a sense of awareness and solidarity that we need to connect and collaborate across organizations, across sectors, public sector as well as private sector. And we need to move information and knowledge very rapidly. This is where openness can really help, is that it can accelerate the sharing and development of new knowledge. There are, for example, more than 60 companies working on vaccines right now, and they're doing them through many different kinds of collaborations in the academic sector, the medical sector, the public sector, startups, large companies. Many parts of the system are working very productively. And although it will take time to get a vaccine, the level of initiative is really inspiring. And I also liked what Fabrizio said about how, with the crisis, some of the managers, particularly senior managers, who previously were parts of resisting this, are really coming to understand and embrace it. And I'm seeing this even in universities, where professors who would never think of video streaming their class, and were very insistent that this must be done face to face with the professor and the students together in the same room, in a space of just days. These same people are really taking time and effort to deliver their courses and work with their students through these online digital techniques. So if a university can change, anyone can change.
I like that. This I will repeat. I will use it myself.
I fully agree with you, Henry.
I would like to read a couple. Well, actually, gather a couple of questions coming from our social media channels for you, Henry, because they are similar. So I'll try to do a synthesis and to ask you how local public administration could use open innovation. There were a couple of them. Also, how do we go beyond innovation, using open innovation in the public? So if you can tell us something along these lines.
Absolutely. This is one of the areas I think where my time at Lewis is going to be so helpful, because Lewis itself has tremendous expertise in these areas. And what open innovation brings to management in the public sector is the realization that not all the resources need to be public, and that the public sector works most effectively when it mobilizes resources from across the society. And the Genoa Bridge is a small but very important example. My understanding, just from reading the press, is that a person was appointed to be in charge of all of the regulatory approvals for constructing the bridge, and was given extraordinary powers to navigate the many challenges in doing this. So by investing in streamlining the authority of the bureaucracy in a small group, decisions that ordinarily would take months or years were taken in days and weeks. And then the result is not only a wonderful bridge, but they've built into the bridge digital intelligence and sensors that are going to track the maintenance of the bridge, the wear and tear on the bridge, early warning systems that will notify if there's a section of the bridge that is beginning to move out of the range of normal, that actions can be taken proactively, so that the things that caused the earlier bridge to collapse are going to be tracked in a preventive way using digital technology so it doesn't happen again. So all of this, I think, is an example of intelligent public sector leadership. And the whole area of infrastructure, to me, is a tremendous area where public and private sector can and need to come together to help drive this recovery forward.
Absolutely, that's very interesting. So, Fabrizio, barriers can be worked around, right? We can find ways of, even in the most entrenched infrastructural situation, of working towards sort of softening some of the barriers towards innovation. I would like to perhaps do a rapid last round of questions among our guests, and open up with a little bit of provocation, if I may. So I will start from Fabrizio Di Amato. Are there any negative sides to openness? Can you challenge Henry on what are the negative sides to that?
For us, I don't see any negative impact of this openness, because our company experienced to benefit on this openness. But if I may, I would like to give you another point after the early speech, the last speech of Henry. Because, for example, open innovation we are doing now, we see the positive surprising is connected by the cross-fertilization of open innovation. we started with the chemistry coming from hydrocarbon a few years ago as the history of the group. Now we started the last 5 years in the green chemistry. And then thanks to the green chemistry, now we are doing through the green chemistry to the industrial steel. We are moving from green waste to chemical to waste to steel, because through the process as an innovation we are doing as the process waste to chemicals as hydrogen, and then degasification, and then gas desynthesis to steel. For example, another important thing is cross-fertilization on that. This is another very important point. When we started the green chemistry, never see in our mind the situation like that. But after a few years, our people as open, we see, please give us, we have every 2 weeks meetings with me and the CEO, some technical guy coming to us and say what they think, what they want to do, what is the ideas they have. And now will become a real, the cross fertilization from green chemistry, waste to chemistry, and waste to chemistry to steel. This is another important thing on that. And then for me, no negative effect on openness.
Harry.
So, oh, please.
No, please.
One of the things we've not discussed much yet, but I think is an important element in enabling open innovation, is the role of startup companies. Yeah. And that large companies like Maire Tecnimont are doing very important work. And I would argue are critical as orchestrators in these complex ecosystems. But startups have a very important role as well. And I'm pleased that through my colleagues at Lewis, I have been connected to the National Innovation Fund in Italy with Francesca Bria, and I will be advising this fund as they try to stimulate the development of startups in Italy. And the role that they play is startups are able to move very fast and essentially conduct experiments quite quickly, faster than most large companies are able to do. But the small startup companies lack the ability to scale, and they lack the ability to connect and organize across multiple areas. They're very focused, but very narrow. So there's a natural affiliation, I think, between the startups and the large companies, and particularly at the time of the crisis, where private venture funding is suffering immediately. There is much less funding available today for startups than there was 1 month ago. So I think the collaboration with the large companies, which was always important and a good idea for startups, I think now the collaboration becomes absolutely critical because the large companies still have needs and funds and businesses. And if the startups can help the large companies achieve these objectives, there's a very beneficial relationship that will result from this.
Thank you. Andrea, I know we are almost running out of time, so I would just thank you both, Henry and Fabrizio, and I will leave the floor to you.
Thank you, Cristina. It has been I've played an interesting role today. I've been observing this interesting conversation, debate between Fabrizio and Henry, and chaired by you, Cristina. So I thank you all very much. I think it's been extremely interesting, and given the number of questions that we have received, I believe it has been interesting also for our audience. Let me wind up with just a few takeaways. I'm smiling because the first most of the words that I've jotted down while you were speaking started with a P. I said, well, that's very interesting. So because then the first image that Henry showed was a tree, and he said, well, we shouldn't, just cutting the top of the tree, but we should actually prune the tree. And pruning is an interesting idea, because pruning does entail prioritization. So again, you start with pruning to identify your priorities. So P, pruning, P, prioritize. And one key asset, as it was clear also from what Fabrizio was saying, one key asset in each and every company or organizations at large is people. It's another P, but it's people with a different perspective. Yet another P. It's a different perspective because, as Henry was saying, rather than cutting, you should open up. And here, it's the lesson that we get from open innovation in this current crisis is extremely powerful. Opening up, change perspective, and move on. And we have a clear case study here, the one that Fabrizio has been illustrating to us, because changing perspective for Maire Tecnimont has been incredibly important for Maire Tecnimont's success today. But again, as we know, we keep saying to all our students that success is not built overnight, especially if you're building innovation. And so, the two issues I'd like to highlight about Fabrizio's experience is the importance of investing in digital tools, but to create digital capabilities. As Fabrizio has been saying over and over again, is not just an issue of buying in technologies, is making sure that people understand and use technologies, not just giving them technologies to work from home, but offering them capabilities, and in some cases also creating a new culture. And this, in fact, is pretty clear in Maire Tecnimont, because by investing in new technologies and creating new culture, Maire Tecnimont became ready to face the crisis. They moved 3,000 people week one, another 3,000 in week two. So they became ready thanks to the investment that they did early on. The second interesting example is the one of cross-fertilization, which is a beautiful example of innovation, again, starting from the roots of innovation, moving from one disciplinary domain to the other to come up with new opportunities. And so if I had to use a concept to kind of summarize this very nice and interesting perspective that both Andy and Fabrizio has mentioned, I would say that innovation, and particularly open innovation, does require new mindset. It's just not an issue of skill set, but is first and foremost an issue of mindset. And so let me just move on to what's going to be the next masterclass. It's nice that Cristina, you selected one question about innovation in public administration. So, and as we know, innovation is not only an issue in corporation, but it does also count in other organizations, in public administration, universities as well. And Tuesday masterclass is going to be on how international relations will change due to the pandemic. So we're going to move up a bit in terms of the issues that are going to be discussed, because we will have Raffaele Marchetti, who's a professor of international relations here at Toulouse University, who's going to be debating with Cecilia Piccioni, who is the former ambassador of Italy in Vietnam. And again, we'll be discussing the new kind of configuration of international or geopolitics and international relations in the new normal, as we say. So again, thank you very much for the wonderful conversation we had today. And thank you to the public. We'll see you again next Tuesday. Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Henry.